My marriage was a house built on sand, and I didn't even realize it until my own brother started sifting it through his fingers. For months, he'd smiled, offered advice, and played the part of the concerned best friend while he was systematically dismantling my life from the inside. This is the story of how a best man's speech didn't just end a wedding. It exposed a betrayal so deep it shattered everything I thought I knew about family and love. It began subtly, as most disasters do. 2 years ago, I married Vivienne, a woman I believed was my soulmate. My brother Kieran was my best man. We'd been inseparable since childhood. He was my confidant, the one person I trusted with my deepest secrets. When my marriage hit its first rough patch 6 months in, Kieran was the first person I called. "She's distant," I confessed to him one morning over coffee. "Like she's here, but she's not. I don't know what's wrong." Kieran, ever the picture of calm wisdom, stirred his coffee and said, "Marriage is an adjustment, brother. Give her some space. Maybe she just needs time." I took his advice because why wouldn't I? He was my brother. I stopped questioning Vivienne when she came home late. I ignored the abrupt end to hushed phone calls whenever I walked into the room. I trusted Kieran's counsel, and in doing so, I surrendered my suspicions to his reassurances. But the distance between Vivienne and me only grew. She started working longer hours, and weekend trips with her colleagues became a regular occurrence. The little voice of doubt in my head would surface, and each time I'd dial Kieran's number. "She's just focused on her career," he'd tell me. "You should be proud of her ambition." "You're being paranoid," he'd say when I brought up her secretive behavior. "Trust is the foundation of marriage," he'd remind me, when the urge to check her phone became overwhelming. His words were a soothing balm, perfectly designed to keep me from digging deeper. I believed him, because the thought of my brother deceiving me was more impossible than my wife being unfaithful. This carefully constructed illusion held for months. I convinced myself our problems were normal, growing pains, just as Kieran had said. This went on until last December, when everything changed. Kieran announced his engagement to Rosalind, a sweet, quiet woman he had been dating for 8 months. The timing felt strange. Their relationship started right around the same time my marriage began its slow, quiet collapse. Despite the odd feeling, I was genuinely happy for him. When he asked me to be his best man, I immediately said yes. I wanted to be there for him, even as my own world was quietly crumbling. I threw myself into writing the perfect speech, something heartfelt about brotherhood, about finding your soulmate, about the kind of love that lasts forever. But as the wedding day approached, tiny cracks started to appear in my brother's facade. He'd check his phone with a nervous urgency during our planning sessions. He'd occasionally mention a detail about my marriage I didn't recall telling him. A strange, fleeting expression would cross his face whenever I brought up my problems with Vivienne. Then, 2 weeks before his wedding, the facade crumbled. I was at his apartment, helping him pack for his honeymoon, when a small, folded receipt fell from behind his dresser. My hands trembled as I picked it up. It was a hotel bill from 6 months prior. The date and location matched the same weekend Vivienne had told me she was on a company retreat. The same hotel. The same dates. My mind reeled. Every piece of advice, every calming word, every reassurance Kieran had given me played back in my head, each one tainted with a new, horrifying meaning. I didn't confront him immediately. Instead, I did what I should have done months ago. I started paying attention. I followed Vivienne one evening, watching her walk into that very same hotel. I waited for 3 hours until they both emerged, my wife and my brother, walking out together, laughing. The sight was a punch to the gut. The betrayal was so profound it was almost physically painful. It wasn't just that Vivienne was cheating. It was that Kieran, my own flesh and blood, had been the one pulling the strings, a puppet master manipulating my reality for months. His advice hadn't been to help me. It had been to keep me blind while he destroyed my marriage from the inside out. I didn't confront them. Not yet. I had one final card to play. I went home and rewrote my best man speech. The wedding day was perfect. Beautiful venue, clear weather, Everyone's smiling and celebrating. I stood next to my brother at the altar, watching him pledge his love and loyalty to Rosalind, the same vows he'd been making a mockery of with my wife for 8 months. Vivian was there, in the third row, looking radiant and smiling at me with the same deceptive charm she'd used for so long. The reception was a blur of good food and dancing, leading up to the moment I was called up to give my speech. As I walked to the microphone, my heart pounded, but my mind was crystal clear. "Good evening, everyone," I began, my voice steady. "For those who don't know me, I'm Marcus, Kieran's brother and best man." The room quieted. I saw Kieran's expectant smile, Vivian's encouraging nod, and Rosalind's trusting face in the front row. "I've known Kieran my whole life," I continued, my eyes fixed on my brother. "And I thought I knew everything about him, his dreams, his values, his character. I thought I knew what kind of man he was." Kieran's smile faltered. He sensed the shift in my tone. "You see, Kieran has always been great at giving advice, especially about marriage," I said, a dry, bitter humor in my voice. "In fact, over the past 8 months, he's given me countless hours of wisdom about how to handle problems in my own marriage, how to be patient when your spouse seems distant, how to trust when things don't add up, how to give space when someone you love starts living a secret life." The room was completely silent now. The confusion on the faces around me was palpable. But Kieran and Vivian knew exactly where I was going. And Kieran's advice worked perfectly, I concluded. It kept me calm, kept me trusting, kept me from asking the hard questions while he spent 8 months sleeping with my wife. Gasps filled the room. Rosalind's face went white. Kieran started to stand, but I held up my hand, silencing him. "So here's to my brother, Kieran, and his beautiful bride, Rosalind," I said, raising my glass. "May your marriage be built on the same foundation of trust and loyalty that Kieran brought to mine. And may you never have to wonder, when your husband says he's giving advice to help your relationship, whose relationship he's really protecting." I set the microphone down and walked out. The sounds of chaos erupted behind me, shouting, crying, the scraping of chairs. I didn't look back. Kieran's marriage didn't survive the night. Rosalind left him at their own reception. Vivian and I are divorced now. My family, as families do, chose sides. Most of them sided with Kieran, believing I was the one who had caused a scene. The experience taught me a painful but invaluable lesson. Sometimes, the people closest to you are the ones slowly poisoning your life while pretending to heal it. The wisest sounding advice can be designed to keep you from seeing the truth. The only way to stop being manipulated is to expose the manipulation for what it is. I'm not proud of how I handled it. Rosalind didn't deserve to be humiliated like that. But I'm not sorry either. For 8 months, I lived in a carefully constructed lie. The two people I trusted most were the architects of my own destruction. Now I know better. I trust my own instincts, and I sleep peacefully at night knowing that the truth, however painful, is always better than living someone else's version of your reality.